Welcome to the Careers by Jenn podcast, episode 277. Today on the podcast, Jenn speaks with Foss about why your career needs a passion for solving bigger problems. Because smaller problems are just so small.
You're listening to the Careers by Jenn podcast. I'm your host, Jenn Swanson. This is the podcast that helps you to get the job, love your work, and advance your career. Careers by Jenn is a listener-sponsored podcast, and if you like the content, please consider supporting the show as a patron. You can do so for as little as $1 a month. Head over to CareersbyJenn.com and click on Support to learn more. Hello, and thanks for tuning in to this 277th episode of the Careers by Jenn podcast. I'm Jenn, and I am thankful that you are here. If you are listening to this in real time when it comes out, and you are in the United States or in Brazil, happy Thanksgiving! We had our Canadian celebration back in October, and it always feels a bit odd to me to say Happy Thanksgiving now so late in the year, but I know that different places celebrate at different times. Grenada celebrated in October, as did St. Lucia, and Australia is celebrating later in November. Liberia celebrated in the first week of November, and some of the people in the Philippines are celebrating today, and perhaps also did celebrate back in September. Apparently there is no official date at the moment for the Philippines. So wherever you are, maybe there are different dates in different places. You can let me know. I am thankful that you are here, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday. I'm also thankful to be a guest on the land upon which this podcast is recorded. It is the unceded and traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, including the Matsqui, the Kwantlen, the Katzie, the Semiahmoo, and the Stolo First Nations people. And I like to acknowledge that at the start of every show. A quick note, I am also grateful to all of you who have come over to the YouTube channel and subscribed. I want to change the name of the channel, and I need 100 people to subscribe to be able to do that, and now I am just over the halfway point. So I would be really grateful if you had a moment and felt like heading over to, it's called The Jenn Swanson, capital V, capital J for Jenn, capital S for Swanson, and you will find a playlist there of quick career tip videos that has different content in it than you hear on the podcast. All the podcasts are there also in audio format, but the quick career tips are short videos that I have created. I just started doing that in August. And I do have some video versions of the guest podcasts as well, but these are only available for patrons over on Patreon. But on the YouTube channel, if you have a moment to come over and watch a couple of the videos and subscribe and maybe leave me some suggestions for topics, that would be brilliant. All right, well, let me introduce you to my guest for today, Mr. Foss. After over 20 years in the healthcare industry, Shane decided to use his passion for technology to improve healthcare operations and products. And in 2018, he launched Hooray Health, which is an unconventional health insurance company in the United States that works hard to make healthcare coverage in that country simple, accessible, and affordable. He is busy educating employees on what they deserve and should expect from a health insurance company. And he is also eager to discuss how we can improve for the needs of the uninsured during this time, this critical time of needing care. He talks about the value of telemedicine, how business owners and companies can more proactively support their employees, and how they can work together as a team. Now, we're not talking healthcare on this podcast. That is not our topic per se. But instead, with all of his experience, Shane is going to talk about why your career needs a passion for solving bigger problems in the same way that he's managed to do with his company and his career. So let's go to our conversation right now. So often I tell clients in a job search when they're creating their resumes or their cover letters to consider what unique skills they bring to help solve problems for the organization. But it's the question of what problem can I solve? My question is that the question we should be asking? What problems can I solve for my organization at every stage of our careers?
I think in itself, that's a great question. The challenge is when you don't, when you're in, when you're applying or, the resume for, to put in front of a job, for a job, you don't know what their challenges really are, right? And I think that's the part of the interview that's so important, is answering that. So sharing your skill sets are really important, but in the interview, that's where the magic happens, because as a salesperson, I ask a lot of questions. And so even and I think that's an important skill to learn, is really asking the questions that engage the interviewer and finding out, what are your biggest challenges today? And then taking your resume and those skills that you offered up, that, well, if you look, my related skill for solving complex issues, really through bringing people together, getting, collecting all of the information, then being able to boil it down into a couple different solutions. I think that's the opportunity.
And so what I was getting at, I think too, is once you've got the job and you've been doing it for a long time, should solving problems be your key, like your focus? Is that something that that you should try to do as an employee throughout your career?
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest differentiator between a successful employee / then manager and leader than somebody that stays in the basic ranks. Because every business, I don't care if it's a gas station, if it's a restaurant, if you're a Fortune 1 company, right, Amazon, you're always solving complex issues. And so having the mindset of, okay, let's break down the problem and figure this out, as opposed to, oh my gosh, throwing your hands up and I don't know what to do, right? Really eliminating the fear of failure, it really makes a successful person, in my opinion, because I always love arguing. Some people take me the wrong way because I'm a debater and I like to challenge people. But once you get to know me, you're like, oh, he's just asking the question. And I may agree with you 100%, but I want you to understand what you're really saying. And to buy in, because the ability to debate issues is really going to make the problem solving opportunity a lot more robust, because you're gonna challenge each other to look at things differently, and that's, I think that's what makes a successful employee, entrepreneur, leader.
So you said to eliminate the fear of failure. How the heck do you do that?
Well, it's funny, because I have a 23-year-old son that just graduated college, and here's a great example. That poor kid is trying to find a job right now in the worst time to ever try to find a new entry level job. And so we had this conversation the other night. It's putting himself out there, and he's applying for all these jobs. And I said, well, look, why don't you just drive up, put your mask on, walk in and say, hey, I just want to meet the hiring manager, and set yourself apart. And he was very reluctant. And I said, look, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. What is the worst thing that they're going to say? Get out of here, right? We don't do that, right? And they're probably not going to do it. They're probably going to say, you know what, this kid really took the initiative. And so that's just one of a million examples. Don't be afraid to to try something and fail, because that's how we continually improve. And, one of the things in any organization I've ever been in and led, I do not punish people for failure. I mean, it is, where the times that I'll get angry with somebody is if A, they didn't take the chance, B, they saw that it was failing and they didn't stop and say, hey, look, let's reevaluate, right? Let's try a different route. And that's really as an employee, if you're, whether you're, it's an entry level job, or whether it's, you're getting your first manager's job, identifying the people, and inspiring them to have that fear, or that lack of fear of failure, is very important. But then you yourself, hey, look, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and, walk into your leader, your boss's office and say, look, this is what I tried. I failed. I just want to let you know, here is the outcome. This is what we're doing to fix it. Right. And I think that's a very good skill to focus on and develop over the course of your career if you really want to be successful. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I have a long list of failures. I have failed miserably in multiple areas, and but I've learned from them, and that's what's made me who I am today.
And I think anyone who has it can be said to be successful has a list like that. I'm hearing collaboration, I'm hearing vulnerability, I'm hearing transparency. Can you speak a little bit about those things?
Absolutely. So vulnerability is when you look at from a leadership standpoint, if you really want to develop your leadership, I think vulnerability is really a key trait, because you don't have to take credit for everything, every success. And I think people think you're vulnerable if you're not. Hey, they work for me. That happened. I always make a point, and have done this for most of my career, is really pointing out people, even when we're in a board meeting. Oh, hey, look, Long did X, Y, Z, and I had nothing to do with it. Right? This is something that he gets credit for, and what it does is it shows your self-confidence and your ability to lead and to motivate people, because that's very motivating for the people that, they're going to run through a brick wall for you. So that vulnerability, I think, is really important. Having the vulnerability and the strength to talk to your manager, your boss, about, hey, what am I doing wrong? Right? How can I improve? And taking that feedback as exactly what it is, constructive criticism and feedback to improve, not as a slight to your abilities. Transparency is another one. I instead of transparency, I'd use the word candor. There is a lack of candor especially I'm in the United States today. We have this cancellation culture where, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, if your opinion is not the same as mine, then I'm canceling you out. I'm not listening. And that is a very dangerous place to be. So being able to have candor and open conversations with people, and we're talking about the workplace, having the confidence to go up to somebody that, whether it's your boss or whether you work with that person, or, or they work for you, to just have the conversation. Hey, this is not what we agreed on. This needs to happen. And, it's not acceptable that this wasn't done this way. And, I just had this conversation the other day with, a person I have a lot of respect for in my organization. And I said, look, we agreed on Friday this was going to be delivered, and it wasn't. And this is very important for our business. Well, I thought, no, that's an excuse. Let's get it done, and boom. But here's what happens. When you have the security in your organization, he wasn't worried about his job, right? He was worried more about letting us down as an organization than his job. And so he came back and got it done. I was like, great. I didn't bring it up again. I wasn't railing on him. I wasn't telling people he didn't get this done. It was a conversation. And what that does is that builds trust. And so candor builds trust. Vulnerability builds trust. So.
And it sounds like you're working with people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think in my experience, when I felt that I was, you know, my place was always, I was always second fiddle to the person I was working for, and I was my opinion wasn't respected. I wasn't consulted with. I was, it just was never, to me, it was never a great working environment, and they got less out of me, I think. And so when you look at whether, if you're a first time manager, really having that humility to work with people and listen to people underneath, that are, and I say that loosely, underneath, I just mean that you're responsible for, you get people engaged, and, they want to do more, and you can get more out of people that way. And, not everybody can do that, but, you got to work towards being better and improving every day.
So this idea of your career needing a passion for solving bigger problems, why?
We all have this thing on our body called our head that protects our brain, and our brain needs to be challenged, and everybody needs that. And so when you are in a position where you feel like you're just kind of going through the motions every day, people get in this rut, and some people accept it, some people don't. Our capability at every level. I mean, I work with people every day where it amazes me the quality of work that's done, and the complexity of the problems that we can solve, and you're fulfilled as a person, because what a great achievement to have this unattainable goal, if you would, or problem, and working together with a group to solve it. It really drives you. And here's the thing, look, I'm 50 years old. Money isn't everything. And I'm not saying that because I'm filthy rich. I'm saying that because money doesn't really matter. It's are you fulfilled with your job, with what you're doing in your life? And it really comes from solving complex issues. When I started Hooray Health, I had a person that I was working with on a consulting business, and he's one of my best friends. I brought up this idea of Hooray Health, and he's like, I don't think that's going to fly. I just don't, you're trying to, eat an elephant, blah, blah, blah. So he went off and did something else, and I took Hooray Health, and here we are, 4 years later. But to me, just the challenge in being told, hey, look, I don't know, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this or not. I mean, really motivated me. And now we're looked at as an innovative company in a very complex, archaic space, and we're doing incredibly well. So, again, it's, sitting down, boiling the point, the big problem down to a small problem, and, taking little bites out of it. And, and so as a from a career standpoint, being able to work on those complex problems, I think, really gives you a motivation, a desire, and a level of satisfaction that keeps you happy where you're at.
Yeah, I think it helps you to feel like you've actually accomplished something, and gives you purpose, because if you're just plodding along doing the same, checking the same boxes every single day, it can get really boring.
Right. And purpose is a big part of our lives. People, our mental health is really dependent on that purpose, right? You look at the blue zones where people's average age, life expectancy is over 90, which is, 10 years over what the US is at 82. And for a long time they said, oh, they're eating fish, they're eating olive oil, they're, blah, blah, blah. Well, then they start really digging in, and what do they find? I mean, they're smoking, they're drinking every night, right? And they're eating, olive oil, they're eating fish, but they're also eating beef. They're, eating, it has nothing to do with what they're eating. You know what it was? it was purpose. They were living with their kids and taking care of their grandkids, and they had a reason to live, and that's a big part of your work, your life, right? I don't work to work. I work for my family. My family is the most important thing to me. My wife and I, we were talking before. 15 years we've been working with Faith and Practice down in Guatemala. We don't get paid a nickel. As a matter of fact, we pay $3,000 to $5,000 a year to go down there to work, and we work harder than we work in a week up here. But it's we serve the people of Guatemala that need it, and the people that we go with 40, 50 people every trip, and they're there for the same reason, and it's purpose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's really important. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today? Because it sounds like you've done a lot in your life.
Well, it's a funny story because I grew up in a very small town in northern Minnesota, and I think one of my teachers was surprised that I wasn't a leather punch, I guess. So I don't know if that was a positive or a negative. But I started in northern Minnesota. I started going to college when I graduated high school, and I was lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do, like a lot of kids. And so I joined the military. I joined the Air Force, and brought me to Texas, where I still am today. And it was the best thing I ever did. It gave me a really direction. It gave me a path, and I fell in love with really the healthcare system. And I graduated from college basically right after I finished my military commitment, and I met my wife, and we started this journey. And my wife's a physician, and we have two beautiful kids. And when I graduated from college, I started working for Johnson & Johnson in medical device sales. And from there, went into another organization called Stryker, which was just a fantastic place to learn.
They make stretchers.
Yeah. Well, they make stretchers, they make orthopedic implants. We were talking about hips and knees. And so I was very blessed to be part of that organization for 10 years. And they paid for my graduate school, and I got my MBA. And so I met all these wonderful people along the way, and was challenged, and I grew professionally, and so then from there, I started getting. I basically bought my own first business, and we turned that business around and sold it, and then I was working with private equity for a little bit, and I ended up with one of my best friends working for him as a COO for a health benefits company, where we provided access to large self-funded employers. We provided access to surgical bundles. And so that's where I really got into there's no correlation between cost and quality in healthcare, and this huge disparity. And so when we sold that business, I came up with the idea Hooray Health, and I was ready to do something on my own. I was confident enough to take the jump and make the leap. And now here we are 4 years later, doing really well, and enjoying every minute of it.
It looks like you're enjoying it. I can just see it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's when I bought this business, my first business, it was with an organization that basically, it's not a franchise. It's called a distributorship. And I've never met more miserable people in my life. And I will tell you, my wife will tell you, it was a very stressful 3 years, but we turned it around. We did really well, but it really brought in, or gave me perspective on how important your work environment is, and loving what you do. When I was with Stryker Orthopedics, it was stressful, but it was a good stress, and it was. They were, just a wonderful organization to work for, and I learned so much from them. So when I was in this new environment, it was just a complete 180. And so, look, everything's a learning, and I was successful there, but I would consider that a failure, because I I'm still not there. I still don't own the business. I sold the business, but you gotta learn and move on.
And if you're unhappy, figure out why and change
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Look, your happiness, I hate to break to everybody, but your happiness, you own it, not nobody else owns it. Right. I tell my kids that all the time. If my daughter comes in, she's upset about something, and I say, okay, well, what's the solution? Right.
Right.
It's, what's the solution? Don't focus on the issue, focus on the solution.
There you are, solving problems again, or getting them to solve problems.
Exactly. And, that's what, it's funny is when I was young in my career, and I was learning really how to sell and be a good salesperson, right? More of a consultative sell. I would always practice on my wife, and my wife would stop me and she'd go, "Wait a second, are you trying to sell me?" I was like, shoot, I was practicing. Yes, yes, that's what I was doing.
She had your number.
Yeah, she had my number. But look, it's if you're going to do something, I don't, one of the things that I learned from my grandfather, who was just, a great person. Every time he introduced me, I spent a lot of time with him, and he would introduce me. I always joked, I always said he was the mayor of Duluth because he knew everybody. Every time he introduced me to something or introduced me to somebody, he always had a positive thing to say about him, that person, and made them sound like they were the best at whatever it was. This is Bob. He's the best janitor in Duluth. This guy, oh my gosh. And it was just, he didn't do it for any other reason, just because that's just who he was. And, I think that as we're going through life, just remembering that, just because you are the janitor or you wash cars or you do it should not prevent you from being the best at what you do. And it doesn't matter who you are. And so I've always kind of lived by that. Look, I want to be the best at whatever I'm doing. And so,
Yeah, that's wonderful. So Shane, if people want to know more about you, where can they go? Where can they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, obviously, but we're a United States-based company, so you can find us at Hooray, HOORAY, healthcare.com, and learn more about what we're doing. And we'd love to see you.
Sounds great. And do you have one last piece of advice for the Careers by Jenn listener today?
Yeah, don't be afraid to fail. Failure is part of life, and it's an important part of life, right? You've got to be able to evaluate what you did wrong and then change it, and and keep your eye on the prize, which is the end result.
That's great. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
You've been listening to Careers by Jenn with Jenn Swanson. If you like what you heard, please share this. If every single person listening today shared this episode with just one friend, our audience would be twice as big just like that. And the more people we can help with our content, the better. So help out a friend and help grow our audience by sharing this show with someone you know who would benefit from the content. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that, and together we can make a difference. Until next time, take good care.